Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. It's an old Amiga that needs some care. Sent to me by a viewer of Gentleman's Watch Services, all the way from Laredo, Texas. Before we even open the case, we can see the hands need attention and have mismatched loom. The watch is running consistently, but has an amplitude of less than 180 degrees, so at the very least, this watch needs a full service. There's no time to waste. Let's go. Lovely the brilliant Amiga 552 movement, one of the greatest movements ever put into a wristwatch case, a masterful combination of craft, engineering, and art. Always an excellent idea to have a good look around the movement before starting to wildly hack away at it with one's tool. That's enough of just looking. We know you came to this video to see the excitement, action, thrills, and danger of watchmaking. Buckle up, we're going in. The rotor is looking good. No sign of excessive wear to the rotor axle. As is usual with automatic movements, we shall eliminate the rotor before extracting the movement. The rotor retaining plate has very small screws, not ridiculously small, but still small. We shall use the soft brass tweezers here, much less likely to leave marks. The movement serial number dates this watch to 1964, the same year that the actor Russell Crowe was born. One of these two has aged a lot better than the other. Case clamps next. The screws are looking in quite good condition, a sign this is a well-cared-for timepiece. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an interloper, an escaped screw hiding in plain sight. We'll move the clamp clear of the area, then see if we can persuade this screw to come quietly. Now then, no need to be frightened. Let's not make a fuss. Just come along quietly and we'll have this all sorted in no time. The screw has absconded. We are sure we'll track it down later. We're pretty sure it's just an errant dial foot screw. It had the sloped shoulders typical of its type. Remnants of the crown gasket on the stem, another item to add to the list. At least one of these hands isn't original to this watch. The hour hand has white loom and the minute hand a black paint infill. That will not stand. We shall attend to that later. And the dial just lifted off without me doing anything to half these screws. Have both screws escaped? Keyless and motion works are looking good. The light rust is caused by moist air condensing rather than any actual water ingress. We all know the drill. Before we really get started, we need to get the balance wheel to a place of safety and let all of the power out of the mainspring. Balance wheel first. We'll remove the rest of the automatic works, then we can let the power down. With the power gone, it's safe to remove the pallet fork. The pallet fork bridge screws look in very good condition. Back over to the keyless and motion works. Keys haven't been used to wind or set watches for over 100 years. We really should get over the look no keys excitement and use a more modern name than keyless work. The trick to avoid a yoke spring turning into a yoke sprung is to release the tension before attempting to extract it. With its guardian gone, the yoke can go to the minute wheel, the intermediate wheel, the clutch, and the winding pinion. The pressure spring for setting lever is only found on watches with the button release for the winding stem, which is a much, much better system than the bedeviled setting lever screw. Just two things left on this side. The balance wheel cap jewel, held in its chaton with a spring and a ridiculously small screw, and of course the cannon pinion. Although just the jewels need to go in solvent, we'll put everything in to keep it all together. And finally, the cannon pinion is released. Over to the watchmaker's side. We shall start this side with the train of wheels bridge. It's not a time for lollygagging, shilly-shallying, or even fiddle-faddling. It's time for some watchmaking rambunctiousness. That is an absolute outrage. Not even a sniff of oil, nothing. Some watchmaker has done an okay job cleaning the jewels, then decided to take the afternoon off. Completely criminal behavior. I was not expecting that. What is that? Some sort of curly hair, quite short. We better get this sent to the boys down the crime lab to find out what's been going on. We were expecting some gentle watch repair, not a hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. Let's put those horrors behind us and proceed forward. The wheels and pivots look in reasonable condition, and the jewels are completely fine. We can't see any reason why this won't be a successful service. The off-center crown wheel indicates that it is unlikely to be reverse-threaded. Underneath the crown wheel, we find a beryllium copper washer. This little disc of metal exemplifies the excellence of Omega. There was no need to add this bearing that protects the base plate from long-term wear. Who cares if the watch has a problem in 30, 40, or 50 years' time? The watchmakers at Omega did. And the wonderful design continues with this two-part ratchet wheel. This complication ensures all of the power from the automatic winding rotor is delivered to the mainspring, rather than being wasted turning the crown wheel. The click is next. The watchmaker's special stick with Rodico will ensure we arrest the click spring successfully. Second wheel is released along with the mainspring barrel, and we may as well dive in and get the mainspring out too. That was close. The mainspring was a bit excitable. A firm grip on the outer coils stops the spring from truly wreaking havoc. Again, no harm done. The automatic works must be disassembled for cleaning too. The underside is an absolute symphony of brushed and polished metal, and bright jewels all hidden away, never to be seen. As we mentioned earlier, this watch was made in 1964. What a year! The Beatles made their first trip to the United States, causing quite a lot of excitement and whatnot. A circus elephant in Texas escaped and was later found calmly standing by the side of a road, sticking out its trunk like a hitchhiker. The driver who picked it up swore that the elephant nodded in gratitude before being returned to its trainers. While some people were impressed with the invention of the computer mouse, basic programming language, and liquid crystal displays, New York State said, "Hold my beer," and created the first serving of buffalo wings at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo. And the very, very last part to be removed is the balance wheel top cap jewel. One can pick these out with well-honed tweezers, but they are very prone to pinging off, never to return. Nobody really knows where lost watch parts go. Some say they are transported into a dark dimension of hopelessness and misery. Some say New Jersey, nobody can say for sure. While everything else is whizzing around in the watch cleaning machine, we shall prepare the balance wheel pivot jewels. Dipping the cap jewels in FLR helps with the application and retention of oil. And now we may plonk the balance jewels back where they belong. As we mentioned earlier, this watch was made in 1964. What a year! The Beatles made their first trip to the United States, causing quite a lot of excitement and whatnot. A circus elephant in Texas escaped and was later found calmly standing by the side of a road, sticking out its trunk like a hitchhiker. The driver who picked it up swore that the elephant nodded in gratitude before being returned to its trainers. While some people were impressed with the invention of the computer mouse, basic programming language, and liquid crystal displays, New York State said, "Hold my beer," and created the first serving of buffalo wings at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo. What a time to be alive! That spring looks upside down. There's no witness mark from the screw visible. There it is. That looks a better fit too. Now we shall prepare the mainspring barrel for its arbor and spring, a little oil for the arbor, and braking grease for the spring. The braking grease regulates how much the mainspring slips, as it's being constantly wound by the automatic works, helping maintain a constant power level. Some people slather the braking grease as if they're buttering a hot toasted crumpet, or if they are unfortunates who don't have crumpets, toasted bread. Measured, consistent application is the way. We have put the new mainspring into a winder, so we may insert the spring without pushing the grease away from the barrel wall. The arbor is next. This is one of the few watchmaking tasks that can turn into a bit of a wrestling match, but in this case, the arbor immediately surrendered. Lubrication is applied before we fit the lid. Omega barrel lids tend to be a little delicate, so we push them home by hand, less likely to squeeze them out of shape, trapping the arbor. And two critical checks. First, that the arbor is not pinched. Second, that the arbor is hooked into the mainspring. We may proceed with the movement assembly proper now. Mainspring barrel in first, followed by the second wheel. Barrel bridge is reinstalled with its 3 screws. We closely inspected every pivot, jaw, pinion leaf, and wheel tooth. We also had a close look at the balance spring, stud, and regulating pins. We are confident this watch will run well after assembly. Here's our friend, the beryllium copper bearing. A little grease, and we can replace the crown wheel. And a little more where the crown wheel meets the core. Sometimes the ratchet wheel screw and the crown wheel screw look very similar to each other. The ratchet wheel screw is invariably the shorter of the two. Click is in, we can head to the ratchet wheel. The 2-part ratchet wheel, not much lubrication needed for this part. Unfortunately, we did not capture on camera the lubrication of the ratchet wheel planet pinion. It's the most important part to lubricate in the ratchet wheel. We may proceed to the train of wheels. As ever, we don't try and force the wheels into their pivot holes. We persuade, cajole, and request. And if that doesn't work, we beguile, wheedle, and honeyfuggle. Using force only ends in misery, regret, and snapped pivots. The watchmaker's special stick is critical to keep everything stable as the first screw fixes the bridge in place. Let's not forget the second-hand pinion. And a tiny drop of oil on the bearing surface that meets the spring. This spring is also made of a beryllium copper alloy. Everything we said about looking after the train of wheels pivots counts double for the pallet fork. Sweet talk it into place. Let's take a look at the keyless and motionworks reassembly next. We shall kick off with the setting lever and the setting lever pressure spring. Lovely start. No drama there. Now we apply a little blue grease to protect the main plate from the winding pinion. The blue grease on the winding pinion teeth isn't really needed in this movement, as the ratchet wheel does the job these teeth normally do. Sliding clutch and more blue grease goes everywhere we can think of. The yoke, then more blue grease, and the yoke spring is policed into place. Time to prepare for the return of the wheels and pinions with some oil, and the cannon pinion goes first. Minute wheel and then the intermediate wheel. Check that the side with the chamfer on the teeth is downwards to meet the sliding clutch teeth. Setting lever spring is straightforward. Partially fit the screw, put the spring into the correct position, then fully tighten everything. Some blue grease for the stem, and like the mainspring barrel, remember, this is a watch bar, not a hot crumpet. Check the operation, then we need to remember what we still haven't done yet. That's right, the automatic work. The reversal wheel was lubricated in new better and allowed to dry. Now I can go back in. Now we shall plot the bridge into place perfectly so all the pivots fall into place. Ready? 3, 2, 1, plot. Not even close. We'll do it next time. We promise. Some light lubrication and we can get back to the main event and get the watch running. We'll start with some special lubrication for the pallet fork jewel. Just want to pick up a little drop. The jewel is about 0.3 millimeters wide. A very small target. This is a high blood sugar, low caffeine job. In imperial measurements, 0.3 millimeters is the thickness of a Dorito after all the seasoning has been licked off. The moment we all love, the balance wheel going back in, we know it's going to work. It's got to. We've checked everything, but you never know for sure, do you? Let's see. Lovely. We'll leave that running while we oil the train of wheels. Tiny little deposits of lubrication. That is all looking tickety-boo, but wait, we've forgotten something. The hands we need to sort out the hands, dirt, rust, and mismatched loom. Unfortunately, we didn't switch the cameras on for the work on the hands. Here they are after the loom was applied to the underside. Apologies. While we wait for the loom to dry, let's make a new watchmaker's special stick. It's a great way to dip your toes into making your own tools and practice your hand honing skills. Start with an acrylic lolly stick and 600 grit paper. Keep the stick at the same angle. That's the focus. Now turn over, same angle again, and the second surface parallel to the first. Work through the grits to smooth it off, and if you want to get a bit obsessive, and of course we do, we're watchmakers, use some polish at the end. There we go. About 10 minutes work. Back to the watch. We've given the case a light polish, polished the crystal. It's the original, so definitely not going to replace it. Repair the broken dial foot, and the new loom is dry, so it's time to finish this one. Yes, we did find the errant dial foot screw, so he can go back too. The final lubrication for the hour wheel. Happy with the hands, not perfect, but much, much better. And the loom is looking very sharp. We shall be using this movement holder to support the second-hand pinion, while the second hand is pushed on. There's the Omega logo stamped into the underside of the crystal. Always nice to see. Case clamps in, then install the automatic works, making sure the wheels are engaged before we add any screws. The rotor can go back and finally a new gasket for the case back, and we can see how we did. If you have a watch that needs service or repair, check out the Gentleman's Watch Services website. There's a link in the description. You never know, your timepiece might even star in a video. Right, that's it. Everyone, please do have a marvelous day in all departments.